Hi, Right Writers. Cruz here. Thank you so much for joining me this Tuesday. Today, we are going to be sharing a memoiristic essay that we wrote based off of a poetsandwriters.org prompt on family vacations. In that prompt, we were asked to write a memoiristic essay that recounts a family trip or occasion when not everything went as planned. Did one moment cause everything to go off the rails, or was it something more gradual? And so today, Right Writers, I will be sharing my piece entitled St. Augustine. When you live in a tourist state, sometimes it can be challenging to do something that A, feels non touristy, and B, feels like a vacation. As to who chose St. Augustine, mom or dad, is unclear. All I remember is that one summer day, my parents decided that we were going somewhere, and that somewhere was St. Augustine. I didn't know much about the place, other than that it was the oldest city in the country. Setting up the vacation arrangements was more than likely Mom's doing. The only hiccup in our first and only family vacation was trying to figure out what we were going to do with our new puppy. It was the 80s, so dog friendly hotels were not exactly the it thing. I can remember my parents arguing about the puppy. Dad did not want any animals around, period, so it was a serious bone of contention. However, after exhaustive arguing and crying, Dad surrendered. The deal was simple. If we took the puppy, Dad would never be in charge of it. Because I was the oldest, I volunteered to be on puppy watch. Puppy watch meant making sure it had enough food and water, taking it out for number ones and number twos, and of course, keeping it content. At this point, I feel it is important to reveal that, at the time, I was a gawky seventh grader who had never had a pet. I had no idea that being on puppy watch was like being in charge of a newborn. Indeed, the entire family vacation, from my perspective, revolved around whether I was allowed in with our puppy. You may be asking yourself, why not leave the puppy in the hotel room? If my memory serves me right, I think taking the puppy was the condition in which the hotel allowed us to keep the puppy in the first place. Needless to say, I ended up opting out of many of our family excursions. Instead, I stood outside of a few tourist traps and museums while my sisters and parents gawked at all the strange stuff of Spaniards. I do remember my mother insisting that I go inside of one of the museums while they stood outside waiting. She knew I would appreciate the Leitner Museum, and she was right. Architecturally, it was stunning, and the contents within it were gorgeous. The Leitner either had an exhibit on glass, or on jewels, or on both, because I recall being enchanted by lots of light and sparkle. I have many fond memories of that vacation, including watching our entire family, puppy included, stroll and point within and around the Castillo de San Marcos. Another recollection was seeing my mother's face light up when she saw her surname engraved on some sort of historical registry. Despite being on puppy watch, for me, the vacation was not so much a disaster as it was a question. Why didn't we take more family vacations? Today, our first and only family vacation serves as an important reminder to set aside time, not just the holidays, to reconnect with our families. Running a tight ship, one that strictly revolves around the division of labor, is fine for a time. However, prioritizing leisure is necessary. Otherwise, at some point, as it did in our family, the seams come apart. Strange now to think that when I was a gawky tween, my parents lived in a place that made family leisure its primary tourist objective. However, the only time I remember watching them enjoy their own was once, in our country's oldest city, St. Augustine. Let's take a look at our prompt for next week. It is a poetry prompt, and of course, it is from poetsandwriters.org. The title of this poetry prompt is Hyperlocal Lore. For nearly 3 decades, from the early 1980s until 2013, Dr. Jonathan Zizmore's skincare ads for his dermatology practice were a mainstay in New York City's subway cars, touting treatments for various skin problems and displaying the doctor's own slightly smiling visage. A 2016 New York Times article noting his retirement stated, quote, "To know Dr. Zizmore is to know the city's secret handshake, to appreciate its quirkier, more pedestrian pleasures that natives claim as their own." Unquote. What's hyper-local to where you live? Brainstorm some ideas of things that might qualify as local lore, your city's secret handshake. Perhaps some idiosyncratic window displays or advertisements, a distinctive element of the urban landscape, a quirk of the natural environment, or public street art. Write an ode to one of these items to commemorate and share its pedestrian pleasures. And so, Right Writers, that is our poetry prompt for next week, to write an ode, and specifically writing an ode on hyper local lore. Thank you so much for joining me, Right Writers, and I'll see you again next Tuesday. I hope you have a great rest of your week and see you again soon. All right, cruise out. Love you guys. Take care. Bye bye.